नमाज ज़हनी और रूहानी सुकून हासिल करने का ज़रिया है। नोरा फतेही। जी हाँ नाज़रीन, बॉलीवुड की मशहूर डांसर और अदाकारा जो कि अपने आइटम नंबर्स की वजह से दुनिया भर में मशहूर है, उनका कहना है कि नमाज ज़हनी और रूहानी सुकून का ज़रिया है। अपने एक हालिया इंटरव्यू में नोरा फतेही ने अपने इस्लाम के साथ गहरे ताल्लुक़ और नमाज की अहमियत पर खुलकर बात की है। आए नाज़रीन, वीडियो देखते हैं।
You also pray
Yeah,
every
for
day.
sure. Yes.
That's where the intuition comes from.
Yes, 100%. I think you're right. It's the same thing as when people meditate. I
It
feel
is
like
meditation.
no, prayer is definitely meditation. And when you go into your zone of connecting with your creator, whoever that is for you or for anyone else, you're on a different realm. I feel like spiritually and mentally.
That's the survival skills shield that people don't understand, because people are trying to practicalize and rationalize everything. But when you actually begin praying with your heart, you realize everything that it gives you, especially if your ambition is huge.
Especially if your ambition is huge. Listen, it's not just ambition, but especially if you are sensitive to nazar, sensitive to people who don't have good intentions or goodwill for you, especially if you're out exposed to the world. You know, you need a shield, you need safety, you need something to guard you. And I think prayer really does guard you and help you get out of certain situations. When we pray 5 times a day, what's so beautiful about it is that in the chaos of the world and whatever you're doing, there's 2 minutes that you stop and you remember your creator and you thank him, and you also ask for things. You ask for protection, you ask for forgiveness, you ask for all these things. And it's so nice to have that ability 5 times a day, if you are able to pray 5 times a day. I'm not saying I pray 5 times a day. There are sometimes I forget to, sometimes I'm too busy, sometimes I'd only do 2 or 3. It's a work in progress for me. Between me and myself, I work towards doing that. But when you can, it's a moment where you connect and you remember certain things. And of course, when you remember to be more grateful and thankful, the universe or God gives you more, right? It's a transaction almost, right? The law of attraction. And when you're seeking a moment with your creator, automatically that makes you more spiritually stronger, and that makes you more protected from the external things that are coming your way, especially if you're a public figure.
Okay, so this is something I wondered about namaz. When you're sitting for it, there's a chant you're doing in your head, right? So while you're chanting, are you also thinking of your wishes?
So you're not chanting. So what you're doing is, first there are things that we memorize when we're doing our namaz. So you're memorizing the shahada, right? Which is your
prayer.
Well, your shahada is basically bearing witness that there's only one God, etc., right? So you're reiterating that. Once you reiterate that, you start to read the ayats from the Quran, which you're memorizing. There are specific ayats that we have to say when we start our prayer, like surahs, like Surah Al-Fatiha. That's a surah that we have to always start our namaz with. And all Muslims who pray have memorized this surah. So we always start with that. Surah means a whole chapter, basically, of the Quran. Then there are...
Is it like in the form of poetry?
Yeah, so it really is. Yes, it really is. Yeah, and you recite it. When you're reciting it, you recite other chapters of the Quran, and then you start to say things like, I thank God, the Creator, I thank God, the Creator. And then when you prostrate and you have your head to the floor and you're praying, that is the moment where you're asking for forgiveness. That is the moment where you're asking for anything. You're making your du'as, basically. That is the moment where you're connected to God at a different level altogether. And people use that moment for a lot of things, to say a lot of things. Most people use that for forgiveness, really, because we're sinners, right? Throughout the day, we're constantly sinning. So that's the moment where, again, you're reconnecting with God. Again, you're trying to clean your slate. And then when we get up again, we recite the surahs again, we do our ayahs again, and then we go back down. And it is kind of a bit of, it is literally meditation. Really is. Because what you're doing when you're meditating is you're chanting, right? But you're chanting really strong words. They have meaning. They have spiritual meaning, right? And they're opening realms where you're starting to connect with another higher energy. So when we're doing our namaz, and whatever we say, as much as I'm saying there's surahs and there are ayats, but they have a lot of strong meaning and energy attached, yes, and power attached to them. So we are technically, it's almost the same. It's almost the same, yeah. But it's there's a whole science behind prayer. And I think because we've been so distracted with worldly things and technology and phone and Instagram, and there was a period of time where it wasn't cool to be religious, and it wasn't cool to talk about spirituality, and it wasn't cool to be connected with your creator. So that era, which I think is disappearing slowly, in that era, people didn't want to think about this or talk about it. Now we're going into an era where people want to talk about it more. They're open-minded. They want to learn more. I think we should take this opportunity to research these things more, because there is a science behind why we do what we do, why we pray, why we connect ourselves to our creator, and why we meditate, and why we isolate ourselves for some time, and we try to almost connect our inner being with the higher energy, the higher power.
एक इंटरव्यू के दौरान नोरा ने बताया कि नमाज मराकबे की तरह है जो लोगों को अपने खालिक से जुड़ने और रूहानी और जहनी सुकून हासिल करने का ज़रिया है। उन्होंने एतराफ़ किया कि वो रोज़ाना नमाज की अदायगी को यकीनी बनाती हैं और बताया कि जब आप अपने खालिक के साथ जुड़ने के लिए जाते हैं, आप रूहानी और जहनी तौर पर एक मुख्तलिफ दायरे में होते हैं। उन्होंने मज़ीद कहा कि इस अफरा तफरी के दौर में दिन में 5 वक्त की नमाज पढ़ना एक खूबसूरत अमल है। अदाकारा और डांसर ने इस बात को भी तस्लीम किया कि वो अपने मसरूफ़ स्केजुअल की वजह से दिन में 5 वक्त की नमाज नहीं पढ़ सकती, लेकिन नमाज की वजह से शख्सियत में होने वाली तब्दीली के मुतालिक बात करते हुए इसे एक लेन देन के अमल के तौर पर बयान किया। नोरा ने कहा कि खालिक के साथ ताल्लुक़ इस्तवार करने से किसी को बैरूनी ताकतों से तहफ़्फ़ुज़ मिल सकता है। नमाज के अमल की वजाहत करते हुए उन्होंने कहा कि जब आप सजदा करते हैं, जब आपका सर अपने मालिक के सामने झुकता है, तो यही वो लम्हा होता है जब आप इस्तग़फ़ार कर रहे होते हैं, और ये वो लम्हा है जब आप मुकम्मल तौर पर एक मुख्तलिफ सतह पर अपने खालिक के साथ जुड़े हुए होते हैं। नाज़रीन, आज की हमारी वीडियो आपको कैसी लगी कमेंट सेक्शन में ज़रूर बताइएगा, और इसी तरह की मज़ीद वीडियोस देखने के लिए देखते रहे वॉन एंटरटेनमेंट। मुझे दीजिए इजाज़त, अल्लाह हाफ़िज़।
वॉन एंटरटेनमेंट की वीडियोस देखने के लिए हमारा चैनल सब्सक्राइब कीजिए और बेल के आइकन को भी क्लिक कीजिए ताकि आप हमारी तमाम आने वाली वीडियो से बाखबर रह सकें।